Why do you want to look good? Well, you want to get pretty privilege. You want to get puh. Before this video begins, it's not going to be the most clear or concise video. It's more of a food for thought type of video. So watch it when you're eating, or you could put it in your ear and listen to it. There's going to be some mishaps and incorrect takes that I'm going to make. This video will be mostly directed for the bottom 20% of men or men who are dysfunctional. This video will be more convoluted. It will be less straight to the point than usual, unlike my other video essays where I structured it with an essay to begin with. I am quite in a rush to create more content, so I just want to get the main idea out to you guys. But for a more clear, concise message, comment down below, have some objections, and I'll clear it up. Also, this video is a generalization. Not everything holds completely true to every single scenario, of course not. But it's definitely something that I see that is way more frequent, and you should take this with a little bit of thought. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So today's video will be slightly different. This will be more like a philosophical, conceptual video, and I'm going to be speaking slowly. I don't know how to set the tone of this video because it's going to have some relieving concepts, but also concepts that has to deal with sadness, determinism, relief, learning how to cope, and learning how to rationalize the cards you have been dealt with, right? So this is today's video. It's going to be more or less on the conceptual space of the BP, the LM, and if you're a normie watching, well, you're in for a treat, but stay in tune with this video, because it's probably going to be long. I'm going to edit, but I even have a piece of paper here to see on which things I have to elaborate on. So the first thing I'm going to elaborate on is that it has never begun for some people. The second thing is the looks concept of objectivity and subjectivity. The third one is genetic determinism and the nuances and the interplays of genetic determinism. So for it has never begun, well, for some people, I'm going to break it to you, right? I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not trying to say like, oh, you don't deserve love. Everybody deserves love. And the sad part is, as Jordan Peterson put it, I forgot how exactly he put this sentence structure into words, but it's along the lines of nothing makes a man more self-conscious than when a woman were to friend zone him. And, in the woman's mind, Mother Nature is like, halt. You're not so bad as a friend, but if I assess your genetic material, I don't see it as worthy of propagating itself to the future. Therefore, I cannot romantically love you. And this is a brutal, harsh truth. Yes, of course. Different people have different thresholds for looks. And studies have shown, yes, when you meet that threshold of a certain look, right? You are lovable with your personality making up for your looks to make you more lovable. But generally speaking, if you don't meet that threshold, you're unlovable. And this is not trying to put anybody down, right? It's trying to be realistic. It's just never begun if you're not in that woman's subjective looks threshold. And generally speaking, the subjective looks threshold now is like a 6.2, a 6 out of 10, a high tier normie. You gotta at least be a 6 for you to be generally seen as attractive and worthy of being yearned for. But of course, some women go for the highly genetically gifted people or people who are on the short end of the stick in terms of genetics, facial proportionality, health indicators, height, intellect, ethnicity, or any type of grouping that you want to place on someone for them to be taxed or being poor, whatever, right? But generally speaking, if you were to group up all the average subjective thresholds, it's all going to be on the slightly attractive range for someone to be lovable. Generally speaking, this is what happens. You can make up for it with money, but I'm just talking about genetics-based dating right now. Of course, there are some outliers, but generally speaking, this is what happens. There are outliers of chopped people with good-looking people. Yes, of course. But let's be realistic here. Does that happen all the time? No, it doesn't. Okay, that's the luck pill. If the luck pill strikes you if you're chopped, well, good for you. You're having a great life. You're having your genetics upgraded for your offspring. Good for you. Lucky. But generally speaking, this just doesn't happen. So if you are on the shorter end of the stick, genetically speaking, still try, but just know that you might not get the results that you want. If you are a 5'3" manlet who's sub 5, there's little to what you can do after 18 or 19 besides leg lengthening surgery and extreme facial cosmetic surgery. And that's if you don't get botched. Of course, botch rates differ per procedure. If you're talking about orbital decompression, it's like a 1 in 5 failure rate. If you're talking about double jaw surgery, it's less than that. But you get what I mean. It's going to be tedious, it's going to take money, and not everybody has that type of money. So compared to a 6'2" Chad, who is given almost everything in his life, especially with neurotypicality and great social environments with great epigenetic reinforcement for, a better personality. Well, you compared to him, if you're a 5'2" manlet, sad to say that you're basically unlovable, right? But this is, again, it's not trying to discourage you or say that like, oh, you shouldn't be loved, right? Everybody deserves love. Everybody deserves love. Us as organisms, as people who are created from procreation, from sex, we also do have the instincts and the yearning for a romantic relationship, dopamine, oxytocin, all these different chemicals that make us feel good from sex, from a relationship, from feeling intimate, warmth from the opposite sex. Or if you're Matt Bomer, like, I guess that's an exception, but like if you're a dude, you could get with any guy. So this is not your problem if you're gay. But if you're straight, this is how it's like. You deserve to be loved. And if you don't have any friends, try to make friends. If you're neurodivergent or you're just so socially anxious and you're so socially screwed, I don't really know how to help you. Again, most people, especially society nowadays, they want to say, hey, you're the controller of your own destiny, right? You can control your destiny to a certain degree. Yes, you can. But it's skewed so much to such an unobjective degree where things that are deterministic, like your gender, your race, your appearance, oh no, it's all subjective. It's all social construct, even though there are frequent patterns that we can see within these groups of people. And again, I'm not trying to say this to be, an asshole. No, I'm not trying to say this to be hateful. No. Again, you deserve to be loved. Everybody deserves to be loved. Even if they are a sinful, hateful person, you still deserve to be loved because we all desire to be loved. And the people who are innately hateful, these people who are incels or people who cause havoc in society, it's usually because that they were not loved enough or they were ostracized by society because they were too neurodivergent or they were diverging away from what is socially normal. Very noticeable antisocial behaviors, neurodivergent behaviors, irregular behaviors, less attractive, especially when you see the offings of some people within this year. I made a TikTok about it that got 167,000 views about their chin to philtrum ratios being extremely skewed to such an undesirable degree, and which makes them extremely easy to demonize, villainize, and this is a cultural reinforcement, but also self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're not good looking, if you're not neurotypical, you'll be shunned out. And that's how I was like back then too. I wasn't the best looking person. I was extremely weird. If you look at my Instagram on my other accounts, if you guys have seen me haunting every Instagram comment section, I'm extremely outspoken because my intellect and my generative intelligence and deductive reasoning of developing my own takes, opinions, propositions, concepts, statements, conclusions, etc. are very fortified compared to the average Joe. And I would just like to argue with people. Or I just put down random bullshit because I find it funny. And if people say, oh, you're insensitive, that's dark humor, I'm like, okay, so what? Chang says what fucking Chang wants. So besides that point, in school, I have said a lot of bad stuff, a lot of remarks, if you know what I'm meaning. A lot of words that you're not supposed to say. I was screaming them out loud. I was spamming them out in PE. I'm just like, you know, uh, and I'm just not socially appealing at all. Even once I looksmaxxed, my social environment, girls still didn't really like me. They liked me in a sense where they'd still talk to me, they smiled more, right? But not to the point of getting into a relationship with me because I am so socially screwed. And this is the ND pill reaping me, right? And it's unfortunate that I'm this way. And for me, I'm so screwed neurologically to the point where it's unbearable for me to try to act like a different person. Even now, I'm putting on a slight filter for YouTube, and it's kind of unbearable. And I just don't like that. But for the sake of the net positive of having more influence and having people recognizing me for who I am, and of course, getting the recognition that I deserve, even without grinding. I've been always famous or infamous because of my outspokenness. So right now, I'm just taking the harsh route of clashing with my speech inhibition to speak to you guys so you guys can see what's in my mind. And this is my take, right? But yeah, in simplicity, it has never begun if you're below the looks threshold. It's fine. Try to improve as much as possible. You must live life with the philosophy of constant improvement and not just staying stagnant. Because if you're staying stagnant, you're not even moving anywhere. You're just getting buried under. But you must keep on moving. And I see close ties between the black pill, looksmaxxing, far right, national socialism, a genetic determinism or any deterministic behavior, hypermasculine tendencies, toxic tendencies, all grouped up together, right? They are very closely tied. And usually this stems from the autistic, hyperlogical, not empathetic approach when it comes to rationalizing something. But we're going to use that essence to rationalize what is extremely brutal. And it is that you might not even have true love to begin with. Even if you're good looking, right? Let's just say this. In Western society, even if you're good looking, right? After 18, most women already have their first time already with someone. In college. It is what it is. Pair bonding is just fried. Being exposed to hyper attractive men and other simps and men around you trying to flock towards you for your attention as a woman. It's just reinforcing hypergamy and desensitization, infidelity, degeneracy, and overall cultural degradation. And this is a major problem. And even if you're good looking, yeah, you could have a bunch of sex with a plethora of women if you are light Chad, 6'5". But you may not even get true love because most of them are desensitized. The only time where you could really get true love is when people are not mediafied and desensitized by these environmental factors and truly love and be with someone. But this is under the prerequisites of if you like this person and this person likes you back and you make the effort to talk to them or they make the effort to talk to you. So then you could have a relationship to begin with. And that's the only time where you could get true love. It's just sad. Society is like this. So it's kind of over in a sense, but do not fret. It's okay. If you can't get true love, the next best thing is to at least get into a marriage, have kids, even if it's not really that loving, even if the relationship isn't that strong compared to people with non-desensitized pair bonding neurochemistry. It's all right. The next best thing is to give your kids the best cards that they can have, right? Don't give your kid a fucking iPad. Please don't. All right. I see kids who are watching brain rot all the time and their brains are just fried. So I'm going to sound like Ted Kaczynski or Godis right here, but be more closely connected to nature, a tight-knit family, or even if you and your wife are not that loving, at least try to love your kids as much as possible if you have a kid. And to elaborate on something else. But speaking of children, right, about loving your kids, about making kids, I'm going to have a little segue to this rat experiment where these people had a few thousand rats and they were just living and breeding. They had all the food possible and all that stuff. The females became very masculine, the males became more feminine, and they were also grooming themselves to become the beautiful males, and they were having sex. But the thing is, they were just having sex. They weren't really trying to have children. Mothers started caring for their children less. If you see, this is basically Western society right now. There are abortions happening left and right. It doesn't really matter if abortion is immoral or immoral. It doesn't really matter because you're still not trying to take care of a potential child, right? And this goes for both ends. Women spreading their legs open for Chad and constantly aborting, and Chads having Chad monopoly and plowing and dumping all the women. Of course, this is a huge generalization. There's obviously healthy relationships in the Western world, of course, but I'm saying this is a higher frequent trend that we have seen as a society, as human civilization globally. We see that we are more degenerate than Eastern society. Sources and studies and surveys have shown that the people who rate our current morality state, it's not the best state ever, it's not. And drawing back, these beautiful males, right, are looksmaxxers. Why do you want to look good? Well, you want to get pretty privilege. You want to get puh, right? You want to have an easier time having a relationship. Or if a girl dumps you, you could have a more frequent slay rate of having multiple relationships. Or having a relationship easily. Or being better looking so you could have a better looking partner in general. This is all part of pretty privilege. But the thing is that now men are also not trying to have kids. And of course, I get it, right? The economy, it's basically a detriment to you and the girl if you guys have a kid. But you forgot the main thing why people have sex. It's because you find them attractive to the point where you want to have babies with them. And for you to not want that is kind of stupid. Of course, again, the economy, self-preservation, I get it. Cost-benefit analysis, I get it, right? But if you truly look into your roots, the reason why you have sex is because you want to have children. And the people who won't reproduce, especially in this current society where we cannot have a substantial amount of children to replace us. So if two people have one kid and all the previous generations die out, well, it's that the population is going to be halved. So this is bad. We can't have that. We must at least sustain our population in humanity. But there are some forces out there, that's all I'm going to say, that are making us more infertile. They are making men and women more divided. They are making women less interested in men, women more masculine, men more feminine. They're making the economy worse, so it's harder to have children. And it's all to confuse us, abuse us, and control us at the end. And I do not appreciate that whatsoever. And this is mainly because of greed. And if you're religious, it's because of Satan. But so as a looksmaxxer, don't forget the main roots of why you want to have sex, why you want to have love. It's because of reproduction. You want to have someone who is like you or who is similar to you, and you want to raise them to be the semi-quasi embodiment of you. And this is because you love the significant other so much to the point of where you want to be inside them and you want to have kids with them and you want to have a mixture between that significant other and you as one. So please do not forget this. Do not fall for this hookup trap. I mean, sure, you could hook up, right? It's fun. But at least try to have a healthy relationship and have kids. Please, at least try to have kids. Please. Especially if you're good looking. If you're good looking, try to have as much kids as possible. Try. Right? And you don't need to buy all these expensive stuff. You could just do the naturalistic route. They could shit on the floor, you could clean it up. They could piss on the floor, you could clean it up. You could put them in their own playpen and they could shit and piss in there. You could feed them whatever. Do not feed them any baby food from the asbestos and cobalt content. Like, come on, you're gonna make your kid highly autistic or having a lot of neurotypical dysfunctionalities. Please do not let that happen, right? But yeah, please don't be like the rats. Please don't be like the utter looksmaxxers who just have sex and not have kids, even though they're pretty well off. So if you ever feel rejected or if you ever have been rejected, do not feel sad because it has never begun. In our eyes, it's already over. You are meant to be someone to be loved. It's okay. You didn't choose your genetics. I didn't choose to look this way. I would have wanted my eyes to be like Sean O'Pry. I would have wanted my nose to be sharper. I would have wanted to be blonde, blue-eyed, Eurocentric featured type of person. But no, I'm born like this. It's okay. And I'm making the best out of my own cards. And that's what you gotta do. You only have this one vessel right here. Yourself. Take care of it. Try to max it out. Try to max out all net positives. So you could have the best chance. So you could obtain your goal. And if you're watching this video, your goal is to looksmax. Your goal is to look better. Your goal is to max out every metric of who you are. It boils down to 4 metrics: physical, mental, emotional, financial. Financial and status, right? The very bottom is man-made. But actually, no, not man-made. Like the status part, there is status. But the money part is definitely man-made. But it's okay. You didn't choose your genes. I didn't choose mine either. And it's fine and it's not fine at the same time. You didn't want it. But it's fine in a sense where you had no control over your genetics. You only have control in your genetic expression. And we're trying to max that out. And looksmaxxing is all about trying to max out your genetic expression or frauding your genetics. And people are like, well, that's not honest. That's disingenuous. Well, who the fuck cares when women above 18 are highly hypergamous? These 5 out of 10 women want a 6 foot plus, 6 pack, 6 figure, 6 inch, 6 out of 10 face guy, right? It's 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. It's kind of like sin. But usually a 6 pack, 6 foot, 6 figures, right? And you could maximize your looks and have less money as a threshold for the woman to like you. And so when this force has caused women to be this way, then you as an average man, because on average, people are average. So on average, you would want to meet that ideal range. So you could at least have some form of love, some form of romantic relationship, a form of oxytocin, something of, you could feel some levels of warmth, some levels of intimacy from the other sex. And you're doing that from looks maxing, money maxing, height maxing, gym maxing, neoteny maxing, maxing everything. Status maxing, that's another one. You're doing all that. This is the beauty of trying to max out everything to make good of the cards you've been given with. This is like Sisyphus trying to push the rock up the mountain or the hill, but he keeps on failing, but you just want to try. But yeah, to draw back to the ideologies part of the BP, LM, right wing, all these different things connected to each other, I often see Feng Yuan also being talked about within these communities. Of course, not often, but it is way more often compared to all the other communities besides the light novel community. And there's a fair bit of reasoning to this because most people within the black pill, they're trying to max everything out. They're trying to squeeze the most out of reality. And this is very Machiavellic because it puts your self-interest above everything else. You're going to do no matter what it takes for your success. This whole game is rigged against you as a man. Hypergamous woman, these super upscaled standards, right? And this isn't me trying to blame women, right? Because women are emotional and hive-minded. Generally speaking, this is what happens. So you cannot really be mad at them for being hypergamous because they've been sold an ideology of them thinking that they're the shit, even though on average they're normal people and they don't deserve Chad. But they've been convinced so. And you can't control women as a single individual. So you must abuse the halo effect. You must abuse money so you can have some form of power over the other person. And there is a philosopher, I forgot what his name was called, but he said, love cannot exist without power. And that is somewhat true. It's not entirely true, but it's very true to some degree. And sorry, if you hear that weird sound, it's just my dog. All right. Bro, why the fuck are you looking at me like that? Yo. Hi. All right. Bro. But yeah, one of Feng Yuan's ideologies is basically to always keep on moving. Why fear failure? You fail, so what? Try again. What really is scary is to not even move, to stay stagnant. Feng Yuan lives in a world where it is kill or be killed, eat or be eaten, take advantage or be taken advantage upon. He lives in this world, and it's very similar to our world where the whole game is rigged against you. And you're trying to do whatever possible that you can do within your own means, within what life gave you, so that you can succeed and achieve your goal of love or even just a relationship to begin with. And this is why I made my last video on youth. Before 18, life is basically in near creative mode in relative comparison to life after 18, where you gotta work more, where you gotta go to college, where you gotta pay off student debt, where women are more hypergamous. There's a very high frequency and tendency that I see amongst women in this Western world compared to the Eastern world, where you could be a head of a law firm, a head of X group, and still you could get cheated on by some person who is a Chad piping down your wife. So it's just more safe to geomax. But if you truly want to maximize your chances overall, this is the near futile attempt of trying to be more than what you actually are. Or your epigenetic factors restricting yourself from your fullest genetic express potential. And you could use different mechanisms to go above your natural genetic potential. People like androgenic, Clav, or any biohacker out there that tries to go above and beyond their natural genetic potential. Phenotypic plasticity, Jordan C. Wood, all these different people. And not just looks, your mental state, how you could have better generative intelligence, deductive reasoning, memorization capabilities, computational power, all these different things to be maxed out. And to further elaborate, generative intelligence is basically how much knowledge you can generate and expand or elaborate from a limited data set of knowledge. So the amount of knowledge you absorb in and what you can make with that knowledge to generate more knowledge. That's generative intelligence. Some people, they could learn information, but they won't do jack shit with the information. But some people, they could synthesize all this different points of information and they could create their own knowledge with various different points from deductive reasoning. And of course, generative intelligence, logical intuition, less emotional tendencies and bias, etc. And for the emotional stat, this is your neurotypicality, how well you could function in society, and money and status, just how well you can access different things, food, water, supplies, houses, all that stuff, how you could have more freedom with money and status to just maximize your life. And that's really it for the point of it has never began. So it's not to say that it has really not began, but it's to really emphasize that there's a lot of times where if you really like a person or if you just like a person and you got rejected, don't feel too bad about it. It has never began. Thank you guys for watching. Love each other. This video is not out of hate, but out of consideration for realism and understanding of reality and to be grounded. Thank you very much. Peace out.